employ, all those things that are required to complete an engineering project. And of course, you have your structural drawings and detailings. So all those documents, they are parts of what we call a construction specification. Specifications are integral parts of any set of plan. Like I said, it's a document that prescribes the requirements with which the product or service has to conform. So I can just say specifications are just, let me call them like a guide, or let me call them a Bible that every project has to follow. The project must be done in conformity with what has been specified. You are not allowed to go out of what, it's a contract document, it is binding. Should in case anything happens, you understand? So every work, every project has to follow the laid down specification. So in summary, we can say a specification is that document that contains the following. It contains the type and quality of material. It contains the quality of workmanship, how measurement is to be done, how to prepare, method of preparation of any item, and all other things that are relevant to a particular project. So, and also,
me, I think carry my lecture work out.
So the summary is the same with the purpose.
That's why I can boldly decide where to live.
The summary is the same thing with the purpose of specification, to describe the quality of materials. Then it enables clarification of drawings. If you have any doubt as regards any drawing at any point in time, you can always go back to your specification to see what has been specified, to see what has been laid down there. So automatically it serves as a guide to the supervising staff as well as the contractor, so that I call it a Bible, it's a guide, so that by the time they are able to follow what has been specified in that document, at the end of the day, the project will come out well, it's going to be satisfactory. So specifications are necessary to verify and check the strength of materials for a work. And of course, in case of court cases, should in case something happens eventually to that particular project or that particular structure, and it becomes a court case between the contractor and the owner, who is the client, then they can bring out, the specification and tender it in court that, okay, this is what was written in the specification, the materials I'm supposed to use, the kind of workmanship I'm supposed to employ, and this is exactly what I did on site, you understand? So it's an essential contract document, that shouldn't be taken for granted. So we have three types of construction specification. There are three methods of specifying, and there is no rule that says one method is better than the other. However, care must be taken to avoid redundancy or contradiction. So we have three types of construction specification. We have the proprietary product specification. We have the method specification. Another name for the method specification is the prescriptive specification. And the last one, we have the end results. Another name for that is the performance specification. These types of specifications are just as the name implies, and you're going to see it as we move on. So let's talk about the first one, which is the proprietary product specification. Proprietary, that is, sole ownership of something. Proprietary product specification, that is, these are specifications that are used when a single type of product is needed for any kind of installation on a particular project. That is when the owner or the client does not want any other product from any other manufacturer. Probably he has a favorite manufacturer. He has interest in a particular project, on a particular brand. You understand? So it's proprietary. That is, you are using a single type of product throughout that particular project. The owner or the client to be consistent with their materials, or just prefers a specific type of material. And of course, architects and engineers or any other professional involved in a project where proprietary product specification is being used, of course, they won't like it because it limits competition and it tends to promote a specific manufacturer. You know, there's nothing like competition. And of course, because there's no competition, you know, the manufacturer knows you are coming for his products. He knows there's no competition. It's not the market is not competitive. So what do you expect? It's going to increase the total cost of a project. You know, this kind of a specification, I hope you get what I'm trying to say. This kind of specification, you're only using one product, one type of product from a particular manufacturer. For, you know, some people have a flair for such things. That is, everything I have in my house is from this particular manufacturer. You know, probably they have so much interest, they have so much likeness for that particular product. So the engineer, the architect, other professional on that site is not allowed to bring in any other product. No competition, and of course, it's going to increase the cost of that project, because even if the manufacturer calls a particular product or X naira, you cannot negotiate. He knows you are not going anywhere. He knows you don't have any choice. So proprietary product specification is when you are using, it specifies that, okay, for this particular project, you are only allowed to use a single type of product. And of course, it comes from the owner or the client of that work, and the architect or the engineer does not have any, you know, they don't have any say. They just have to follow, you know, what the owner wants. So it's proprietary, and I'm sure you understand this. It's proprietary. You understand? No competition. It's a sole product specification. It's proprietary, as the name implies. I just want to bring out the name so that you'll be able to, you know, you can always recollect. Now, the second is method. Method or prescriptive. In some textbooks, you can have it as prescriptive specification. Of course, in the study pack, it is method specification. Now, talking about method specification, this type of a specification, it conveys the requirements of the project through a detailed explanation of the material that the contractor should use, the means of installing those materials. This particular specification is detailed. It's going to tell you what you should use, the steps you should carry out in installing it. It's going to follow you all the way.
Okay. Okocha, don't start this thing for induction.
So in method or prescriptive specification, the properties of materials and methods to employ are described in details. You know, it's just like what will I say? A Bible for a beginner. You know, you don't have to cram everything. How you are going to do the work is there. So this type of specification provides more certainty regarding the final product composition, and is very frequently used for highly complex portion of the project. You know, so it shifts the load of that work on the shoulder of the architect or the engineer, because they already have rules that must be followed. So they have to enforce, you know, the contractor to follow those steps, you know, so that at the end of the day, the aim of the building will come out satisfactorily, or the project, you know, will be satisfactory at the end of the day. Unlike the proprietary product specification, where the engineers or any other person, any other expert involved in that project does not have any say, because it's already there that, okay, this is the single product we are going to use. They cannot, it's not flexible, they cannot move, they cannot do as they like, they cannot, bring out the innovations in them. But method, just as the name implies, it's very prescriptive, it's very detailed. The steps you are going to follow is there all the way. So that is method or prescriptive specification. And the last type of specification that we have is the end result, end result or performance. That is, it's a performance specification, or performance specification is a document that tells the contractor what the final installed product must be capable of doing. It tells the operational requirements of a particular product. Nobody cares the steps you follow to carry out the work. There's nothing, there's no detailed information. The most important thing is just get it done. How you do it is your choice. The method you want to employ is your choice, but the most important thing is just get the work done. So the contractor is not instructed as to how to accomplish the task of meeting the performance specification requirements. This approach can provide incentives for innovation and flexibility in the construction approach, because you are allowed, to use any method. You are allowed to experiment. The most important, for example, the contractor is free to choose the material or method he wants. It encourages the use of new and innovative technique. For example, you just tell the contractor that, okay, I want maybe a pumping system that can pump maybe 300 gallons of water per minute, and you just give him, this is what I want. He should go and sort it out. You're only interested in the end result. You're only interested in that performance that you are looking for. So those are the three different types of construction specifications that we have. So in end result, it is up to the contractor to provide the equipment that meets the performance specified. So don't forget, we have three types of specification. We have the proprietary product specification, where a single product, is being allowed to use throughout that particular product. And also, we have the method. As the name implies, it's a prescriptive specifications, where the detail, every step you are going to follow, the materials, the method, how you are going to, if you are doing concrete work, how you are going to mix, what you are going to do, everything is there. It is more detailed, it is more detailed, and the responsibility of this prescriptive method or prescriptive specification rests on the shoulder of the experts that are on that side. And lastly, we have the end result, which is also the performance. There's no instruction, there's no information. This is what I want, get it done. How it is being done, how it's going to be done, what you are going to use is not the problem of anybody. Just get it done. So those are the three types of construction specifications that we have. And of course, in selecting a method of specifying, you should ask yourself some questions. What does the owner require? What method best describes the design intent? What method is most appropriate for the project size and complexity? What method will result in the best quality of work? What method will result in the best price for the work? So if at all, after asking yourself all these questions, even though a particular specification, a particular method has been specified, then if you can answer all these questions, then you will be, as an expert, then you are in the best position now to advise. You understand that, okay, having gone through or having answered all these questions, I think the use of proprietary product specification is not going to be the best, for this project. Why can't we use this other method, or why can't we use this other method? Now, and in constructing your specification language, you have to be clear. You have to be clear. You have to choose words that would convey your message clearly.
They go.
Clearly to the people
Not the most that we finish.
that are going to be using the specification. Then you have to be correct. That is, you have to present your information correctly. You have to use proper terminology. Then the third one, you have to be complete. You know, you can't be brevity at the expense of completeness should be avoided. So your brief expressions should be avoided, and you have to be concise. Eliminate unnecessary words.
I don't see that worry.
Express much
in
few
I don't see the address.
words. So
I don't see the guy.
That about construction specification. So the last topic we are going to talk about is standard.
There's supposed to be one.
We are going to be talking about standard. So the term standard. The term standard.
It's looking familiar.
Actually, standards are embedded. Standards are embedded in construction specifications because there's no how you're going to come up with your construction specifications that you're not going to be quoting or that you're not going to be referring to some standards. So standards are embedded inside your specifications. So what are standards? The term standard has been loosely applied to any agreed upon way of doing things. Any agreed upon ways of doing things. Now we have three principal types of standards. We have the accredited standards, we have the industry standards, and we have the de facto standard. So the first one, the accredited standard, you know, accreditation is not something that we've not heard. So when we're talking about accredited standard, it's just a means of granting of approval to a product by certified or authorized body or institution. So accredited standards, they are developed and adopted before they become standards, before they become something that we now refer to when we are doing our construction specification, before they become standards that we are now using in our day-to-day work. For accredited standards, they are developed and adopted as standards consensus process, that is through a general agreement under the guidelines of national or international standard bodies. In this kind of before this standard.
Now call me not long ago now.
Before this standard came to me, all concerned or interested parties,
that
were
time they arguing say no one follow office.
Oh, please mute your phone.
They presented their concerns, and their concerns were heard and addressed. For example, we have institutions. Is there a problem?
Yes, somebody has been talking. I was wondering if you can hear it.
I heard it, but I know we are all adults. They are in class and they know they should mute.
But we can't hear you, so that's why it's a problem. The rest of us can't hear you.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do to that because they know they are in class and they are talking, and I can't even control it from this end. You understand what I'm trying to? I'm also trying. It's distracting, but well.
Yeah, but when it happens, you can tell the person to stop speaking, because if we all have to unmute to say it, then it will be.
I'm sure the person is listening to you, and I'm sure they will do the needful. Thank you. So the accredited standards, they are developed, like I said, and adopted as standards through an open consensus process under the guidelines of national or international standard bodies. They didn't just come to be. All concerned or all stakeholders were invited. They brought out their concerns. all their concerns were heard and addressed. For example, I said the word accredited or accreditation is not something that is new to us. You know, I'm just trying to explain this type of standard. And probably because of those that were talking earlier on, I said standards are under construction specification, because there's no way you're going to there's no way you're going to specify that you're not going to refer to some standards. For example, if you are doing, probably you are working with, you want to carry out a reinforced concrete work, there's no way you're not going to refer to BS 8110, you know. If you are doing steel work, there's no way you're not going to refer to a code that works, or a code, and all those codes, they are standards, you understand? So we've talked about construction specifications. So I now say standards are under specifications. If you are specifying, you will definitely refer to some standards. Now we are back to standards, and probably from the first, let me go back. We said standards are loosely, they are terms that have been loosely applied to any agreed upon way of doing things. You know, something that is, how do we do it? Or you know, something that you agreed upon, and you are now using it as a norm or as a way of doing things. You understand? So, and I said we have three types of standards. We have the accredited standards, the industry standards. Some textbooks, they call industry standards industry specifications. But because we are talking about standards, we are not under a specification. I don't want you to mix it up. So you can call it industry standards. And the third one, we have de facto standards. So for the accredited standards that we're talking about, developed, adopted as standards through an open consensus process, a general agreement, that is a consensus. An agreement was reached between stakeholders, between different parties, concerned parties, you know. And this type of standard, it's clear. For example, you know, I said we have accredited institutions, you know, managed by NUC, that is the accredited body, accredited national body that is in charge of institutions. We have accredited drugs, you know, when we are talking about NAFDAC, they are in charge of drugs. And, you know, we have accredited products or goods too. You know, when you are talking about SON and all other accredited national bodies that are in charge of monitoring, you know, standards of different things. So this accredited standards it's backed by law. It was reached through consensus. No, somebody didn't just come up or wake up and say, okay, this is how we are going to be doing things. No, different people, concerned people, people that are concerned, stakeholders were invited, they were heard, they were addressed before they now came up with a way, you know, before they now came up with a way or a standard of doing things. So this accredited standard is clearly must be met to conform to the standard, and descriptive material that provide additional information. And of course, all foundings, anything you want to know about NAFDAC, I'm sure if you go online, it's in the public domain. So accredited standards are publicly available from the respective standard bodies. It is not hidden. You can always have access to how they, you know, to the rules and to the guidelines guiding those, you know, those bodies. So that is accredited standards. Now, the second standard that we have industry standards. Unlike accredited standards, industry standards are formalized industry practices, you know, an established standard or requirements in a particular area of business. The difference between industry standard and accredited standards are guided by national or international bodies. But when you're talking about industry standard, it means different industries, you know, that have a common interest coming together, you know, to produce a standard, that is to produce a norm that they are going to follow in the area of their business. You know, it is not under any federal government, it is not under, they came together. Businesses, or let me say industries of the same interest, coming together and coming up with a standard or coming up with a way of carrying out their businesses or of doing things. Industry standards are documents that contain requirements that have been agreed on by groups of companies or people working in specific industries on specific types of products. You understand? So such groups are not bound to consider or respond to comment on their work. It is not under the federal government. They are not liable to anybody. They put their own resources together in order to achieve it. However, if at the end of the day they want to make their publications or they want to make their findings known to the general public, then they can put it in the public domain. And of course, it can always be referenced to. So accredited is under the national or international bodies, and before any decision was reached under accredited standards, there was consensus. People came together, they came together to agree. After hearing from different parties, they came together, an agreement was reached, a consensus was reached on how to be doing things. But for the industry, groups of industries with common interests pulling resources together and coming up with ways of doing business or with ways of carrying out their work. You understand? And lastly, we have de facto. We have de facto standard. De facto is a Latin phrase, and it means by fact or in fact. It is not ordained by law. That is, it is not officially established. It is not developed without any formal, it is not developed with any formal planning. You understand? So it is usually developed and owned by a single group or company. It's gained credibility, probably something I can just decide that, okay, let me come up with something in my room. You understand? And by the time I come up with it and I start doing it and people start copying it, before you know it, it will become something that everybody will be doing, and it will now look as if it is actually backed by law. But no, it's probably that particular thing just gain credibility as the result of the use by a critical mass of people. People start to use, my particular product, or people start to copy how I do my things. And by the time you're now looking at it, it's now look as if it's one registered standard. But no, it's de facto. People accepted it, and it is now becoming their own standard too. So the development of such work is done within a closed group and is not open to the consensus process. So I hope you can now try to differentiate between the different types of standards that we have. For example, the QWERTY arrangement on our was started on typewriters before we now upgraded to keyboard. It is not even this laptop that I'm using, that is the arrangement there, QWERTY, of which it wasn't an arrangement backed by law. Initially it was arranged, those keys were arranged initially then on the typewriter to prevent adjacent keys from jamming. So it was de facto, it was started by one person or probably two friends. You understand? It was started, but now it is not looking as if that is how the arrangement should be. But it was de facto. The arrangement was a de facto standard. They just arranged it then because they don't want those keys to be jamming. And now see most computers or most laptops now, we now have that arrangement. But the arrangement came to be through de facto. I hope we understand what I'm trying to say. And sometimes for a de facto, for any product or any service that is under de facto standard, sometimes a licensing fee might be required, in order for you to use, or in order for you to be open to that particular work or to that particular product. For example, a software. Anybody can come up with a software. You understand? A software that we use, different software for different organizations, or depending on what you are working with. A software, most software came up by de facto standards. Patent and copyrighted works too. They came up through de facto standards. So you have to pay for them. They can tell you, because they are not, nobody gave them work. It doesn't have to be in the public domain. It is owned by a single group. It can be owned by a single person. You understand? But because people now like it, and they now put it in their normal way of life. You understand? It's gained credibility as a result of the use by a critical mass of people. So those are the different types of standards that we have. Our standards might be using accredited standards, we might be using industry standards, and we might be using a de facto standard. So we have different types of standard, and we have different types of construction specification. So that brings us to the concluding part of this class. Thank you, and I wish you all the best. Do I have any question? Any question? So if there's no question, I think we are done for, it brings us to the end of the lectures for this October pre-exams classes. So I wish us the best if there's no question. Thank you.
All right, ma.
Thank you.
Thank you.